You lie better than most. But not to me. And that was before I even opened my mouth. The office of Eidolon Inc. didn't believe in comfort. Everything in it, from the glass walls to the matte black chairs, felt designed to keep a person slightly off balance. The kind of place where secrets echoed if you breathed too loud. And there he was. Lior Albrecht. CEO, market disruptor, supposed genius. The man my former employers wanted dirt on. The man who, according to rumors, didn't sleep. He was lounging behind a sleek desk like he'd built the place with a flick of his fingers. No papers, no laptop. Just a glass of untouched water and a stare that made me want to shift in my seat. I didn't. "You're early," he said. "You're not surprised?" I replied. He smiled. Not warm. Not cold either. Something in between, like a storm that hadn't decided yet whether to rain or destroy the coastline. "So," I continued, keeping my tone smooth, confident, market leader chic, "I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're selective." "That's one word for it," he said, folding his hands. "Another would be precise." I nodded. "That works too." Silence stretched. I'd been told he didn't do small talk, that he'd cut through fluff like a scalpel. But this wasn't that. This was observation. He was watching me. No, not watching, reading. "Tell me," he said finally, "why did you leave Voxus?" "Because they threw me under the bus to cover their insider trading. Because I needed the money. Because I'm here to collect leverage against you for the bastards who ruined me." "I wanted a new challenge," I said smoothly. Lior's head tilted ever so slightly. "Of course," he murmured. "And now you're here. At Eidolon. The company your former employer once tried to sue into oblivion." My pulse twitched. Just a little. He caught it. "I'm sure that's purely coincidence," I said, smiling with my teeth. "Of course," he echoed. "And I'm sure your resume just happened to land on my desk, with no strings attached." I hated this. Hated how calm he was. How aware. But I met his gaze, dead on. "Is there a problem, Mr. Albrecht?" He stood. The motion was slow, like a ripple under still water. He came around the desk, then sat casually on the edge of it. Closer now, his presence magnetic and impossible to ignore. "The problem, Miss Morgan, is that I'm not looking for perfection," he said. "I'm looking for truth." "And you?" His eyes searched my face. "You're not here for a job." I didn't flinch. He leaned in just enough that I could smell the faintest trace of bergamot and something darker underneath. Ink, maybe. Something old. "You lie well," he said. "But not to me." I stared at him. If he knew, really knew, why wasn't he calling security? Why wasn't this over? Then he smiled again. That same storm-teetering smile. That said, I do enjoy a good lie. Especially when it's delivered with such elegance. And just like that, he extended his hand. "Welcome to Eidolon, Tia." I blinked. "You're hiring me?" "Temporarily." He turned and walked back behind the desk. "Until I get bored. Or until you tell me the truth. A test. Or a trap." But I took the job. Because I had nothing else to lose. Because I needed to know why a man like him didn't sleep. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink. And because the longer I looked at him, the more I felt like I was already caught. The office looked like a dreamscape designed by someone who hated dreams. Everything was too sharp, too quiet. Black and white panels, no branding, no chaos. Desks hovered in open space, separated only by glass. Even the music, some ambient instrumental thing, seemed to whisper, "Don't get comfortable." And just like that, I was in. My workspace had a direct view into Lior's office. His blinds were never closed. He was always visible. But somehow he still felt distant, like a man behind soundproof glass in a world of his own rules. I sat down and booted up the sleek silver terminal they'd assigned me. No welcome kits. No orientation videos. Just a single email from Lior. "Let's see what you know. Campaign folder, Requiem, due Friday. Do not ask questions." No signature. No hello. "Friendly," I muttered. A throat cleared beside me. I looked up. Woman, maybe early 30s, tight bob haircut, blazer sharp enough to cut glass. "Hi," she said flatly. "You're the new one." I smiled. Tia, Jules, she said, not offering her hand. Office manager, / therapist, / executioner. Busy title. You'll get used to the fun. If you last... I let out a dry chuckle. That sounds like a threat. Not a threat, she said. A pattern. She pointed with her coffee cup toward Lior's office. He doesn't usually let people stay in his line of sight. You must be special, or disposable. And with that, she turned and walked off like a punctuation mark. The day passed in quiet intensity. I skimmed through the Requiem folder. It wasn't a project. It was a riddle. Half-finished mock-ups, 3 contradicting strategy briefs, and something labeled Impact Cascade that had no context. No team, no deadline alerts, no contacts. Was this a test? A shadow passed behind me. I glanced up. Boy. Pale, thin, young. Post-grad intern energy. He sat down across from me, clearly pretending not to look terrified. Hi, I offered. He flinched. Oh, hi. Sorry. Ren. Date aside. You okay? He nodded too fast. I just don't like, being near him. My eyes flicked to the glass where Lior was seated with one leg crossed, flipping through something that didn't exist on his desk 2 seconds ago. Ren whispered, "He's not normal. I've noticed." He looked at me sharply. No, I think he sees too much. Like he looks through you. I smiled faintly. Maybe you shouldn't give him so much to see. Ren didn't laugh. By day 3, the test felt more like performance art. I turned in my first version of the Requiem concept, only for it to be returned, unchanged, with a single comment. Try again. Make it bleed. I rewrote the entire thing. Then again. By day 5, I was hallucinating mood boards in my sleep, and that's when he appeared behind me. Not walked up. Appeared. You're ambitious, Lior said, voice soft behind my shoulder. I didn't jump. Barely. He leaned slightly forward, eyes scanning the projection on my screen. Your typography's afraid, he said. I can fix that. But the color is honest. Bold, almost hungry. Good. Almost. He didn't move. His hand came down, lightly brushing my shoulder as he pointed at a corner of the mock-up. I froze. See that? He asked, still too close. It trembles. I don't see it. No. But you feel it. He let his fingers rest just long enough for it to be deliberate. You're trembling. I turned my head just slightly, voice cool. Strange. I don't feel cold. His smile could have been cruel. It wasn't. Then it's not fear. It's anticipation. He pulled back before I could reply, walking away like nothing happened. I sat still, hand clenching the edge of the desk, heart trying very hard not to show it was galloping. This wasn't just a job. It was theater. A labyrinth, and he had built it for me before I ever arrived. And worse? Part of me, just a whisper of a part, wanted to keep playing. Lior's office had no right to be so quiet. No ticking clock. No buzzing electronics. Just air, cool, motionless, and that haunting sense of standing in a room where time itself had lost interest. The ceiling was mirrored. It should have made the space feel larger. Instead, it felt like a trap. Like the room could close on itself at any moment and swallow me whole. The books lining the dark shelves had no titles. No dust either. Just lines of identical spines that somehow felt watched. I tried not to glance at them too often. I was summoned without warning. An internal message appeared on my screen. Come in. And don't knock. That was it. So I entered. He didn't look up. Lior sat at his desk with a folder open before him. One of those high-security internal files I was definitely not supposed to see. The top page was labeled Obsidian. Internal Crisis Forecast. He let it sit there. Let me see it. Let me read the words. Projected loss, high-value defectors, regulatory exposure. He turned the page slowly. Do you think I'm careless? He asked, voice almost too soft to be real. I blinked. No. But you think I'm arrogant? I think you know what you're doing. That wasn't an answer. I don't lie to people who already know the truth. He smiled at that. Without humor. You're doing well, he said. People seem to like you. I'm very likable. He closed the folder. Even your enemies? Especially them. He stood and walked to the corner cabinet, pulling out a small black case. Have you ever seen the lower archives? He asked. No. Shame. They're full of things people like you would find illuminating. He extended the case to me. Inside, a thin, sleek metal keycard. This will get you into sub-2, third hallway, end room. I want your eyes on a file labeled Mira 21. Bring me a read by morning. I thought that archive was sealed. It is, he said. To everyone else? The moment I touched the keycard, my palms went cold. Something about it felt ancient, like it didn't belong in a modern building or a modern time. He noticed my pause. Is there a problem? No, I said, pocketing it. But if this is a test. He cut me off. Everything is a test, Tia. Especially truth. That night, I copied the Obsidian report, slid it into the hidden drive I'd rigged into my tablet, encrypted it, transferred it to my contact. It was the most damning piece of internal intel I'd ever handled. Except, something itched. It was too obvious, too easy. He'd left it right in front of me, invited me into his office, asked me not to knock. The next morning, the keycard got me into the archive like he said. The lights flickered overhead like they hadn't been used in years. The air was dry and wrong, like static wrapped in silence. I found the file. Mira 21. Inside? A case study. A campaign from 2 years ago, supposedly sabotaged by an insider. Except, I'd worked on that campaign. I knew the story. And the one in the folder? Completely fake. Fabricated details. Falsified emails. Even my old team's names were scrambled. Another test. Another trap. He was feeding me false intel, to see what I'd do with it. Later that day, I returned the Mira file. Lior didn't look surprised. He read my summary silently, then nodded once and dismissed me with a flick of his fingers. I turned to leave, then froze. In the mirrored ceiling above us, I saw the office, the chairs, the door, the shelves. Me, but not him. There was no reflection of Lior Elbrecht in the mirror, just an empty space where he stood. I turned around slowly. He was watching me, not smiling, just aware, as if he knew I'd noticed. You're not the first, he said calmly. The first to come here thinking you can undo me, expose me, beat me. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate. But maybe, he continued, voice low, you're the last I'll allow to stay. Something chilled in my spine. I forced myself to speak. What are you? He tilted his head slightly. Still trying to decide, he said. And then just like that, he walked past me and out of his own office, leaving me standing in the middle of a room where mirrors lied and silence knew too much. It was just past midnight, and I was the only one left in the office. Or so I thought. The storm outside flickered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Lightning danced somewhere over the river, and the thunder rolled in slow, deliberate waves, like it had nowhere else to be. I sat curled over my tablet, half rewriting the third iteration of a pitch that Lior would probably dismiss in one look. He hadn't commented on my last 3. No praise. No critique. Just silence. I didn't know what was worse, his attention or the lack of it. The glass door behind me slid open. I turned before I heard it. Lior stepped into the room like he belonged to the storm. No umbrella. No jacket. His black shirt was dry. His hair perfectly in place. Not a single drop touched him, and yet the wind that blew in with him was electric, alive, ancient. You don't sleep? I asked before I could stop myself. No, he said, walking past me to the window. People need sleep. I don't. He said it the way someone else might say I don't eat dairy. Simple. Unapologetic. I leaned back in my chair, watching his reflection in the dark glass. Except he didn't have one. Of course he didn't. Is that a side effect of power? I asked. Or a warning label? Lior turned slowly. Neither, he said. It's just what I am. I stood. The tension between us thickened, like gravity had shifted to pull us closer. I should be afraid of you, I said. He didn't smile. You are... No, I corrected. I'm angry. You feed people lies. You manipulate. You... I offer choices, he interrupted. My breath caught. You twist them. I reveal them. He took a step toward me. You'd be surprised how many people spend their lives pretending they have no choice. Until someone like me shows them how many they've ignored. And me? I whispered. You. His eyes darkened. You want to be caught. You want to be seen. But you're terrified of what happens if someone actually looks at you. He was too close. His voice dropped. You want to be undone. But only by someone you believe won't leave you in pieces. The air snapped. He reached out, not fast, not forceful, just inevitable. Fingers brushing against my jaw. My pulse betrayed me, leaping under his touch. I should have walked away. I should have said something clever, or cold, or self-preserving, but my mouth opened, and didn't speak. Instead, I leaned into him. And he didn't kiss me like a man. He kissed me like a promise. Like he had waited for this moment across a dozen lifetimes. Like he'd tasted the hunger in me long before I could admit it existed. One hand in my hair, the other against the small of my back, grounding me as the floor disappeared. We didn't undress quickly. There was no frenzy, no rush, only tension, pauses, breaths like questions, his shirt sliding from his shoulders. My blouse falling in silence, his mouth against my collarbone, my fingers curling against the back of his neck. He didn't ask if this was a mistake, because he knew I already believed it was, and I didn't ask what he was, because I already knew I wouldn't survive the answer. Later, I don't know how much later, we lay in the darkness of the corner lounge room. No lights, just the city glowing through tinted glass. He hadn't said anything since, neither had I. His hand rested over my bare stomach like a brand, his body warm, too warm. I broke the silence. This was a mistake. He didn't move. No, he said. It was a warning. I turned to look at him. His eyes were open, calm, watching the storm in the distance. You're not human. I never claimed to be. And I'm not yours, I added, a final defense thrown in too late. Not yet, he said. And there it was. The beginning of the end. Or maybe the end of the beginning. The cafe smelled like burnt sugar and wet brick. It was tucked between two shuttered bookstores on a street that had once been trendy but now wore its disillusionment openly, like an old coat gone soft at the elbows. It used to be our spot, mine and Leo's, before. Now he sat across from me, sipping something too dark to be coffee, and wearing the same scarf he always had during serious talks. That stupid gray knit thing, frayed at the ends like him. Glad you showed up, he said, not sounding glad. I had a feeling I'd regret it, I said, dropping into the seat opposite him. He didn't smile, just studied me for a beat too long, like he was waiting for me to crack first. You look tired. Been sleeping with demons, I replied without flinching. He blinked, almost smiled. Almost. Are we speaking literally now? I ignored that. You said it was urgent. It is. He leaned forward, arms resting on the weathered table. His eyes darted once toward the street, like he was making sure no one had followed us. Paranoid. Guilty. You've been getting too close, he said. To Lior. To the target. I let out a dry laugh. You mean the man who's rewritten 3 internal protocols since I got there, and somehow already knows every fake move I've made? He didn't respond. Instead, he slid something across the table. A printed memo. Redacted. But not enough. Operation phase complete. Asset compromised. Initiate suppression protocol. I stared at the paper, then at him. You're terminating me. You were never meant to be permanent, he said softly. You were a gap filler, meant to buy us time, a placeholder until something more direct opened up. And what? Now that I've built trust, you're done with me. No, he said. Now that he's seen you, we're done with you. My fingers curled slowly around the edge of the memo. You used me. He sighed. Tia, you let me walk into his world without backup. You let me burn myself alive. He didn't deny it. He just said, we didn't expect you to last this long. There it was. Truth, stripped of charm. I stood. My chair scraped sharply against the tile floor. So that's it? I asked. After everything? After trusting you? You didn't trust me, he said. You trusted the version of me you needed. The sky outside cracked, thunder rolling across the glass like an accusation. He stood too. Tia, you're not who you were. And that's fine. But we can't afford attachments now. Wow, I said bitterly. That's rich. Considering how attached you were to the idea of me cleaning up your messes. Leo looked tired. Tired and hollow. We'll bury the records, he said. Your name won't show up in the trail. You'll be safe. No, Leo. I'll be invisible. There's a difference. He hesitated. Then he reached into his coat and dropped a burner phone onto the table. In case you come to your senses. I stared at it. Cold, silent, waiting. His voice lowered. Almost gentle. You drowned in the role, Tia. Thanks for the intel. We'll take it from here. I left without taking the phone. The rain hit me as soon as I stepped out, sheets of cold wind and water smearing the city into gray blurs. I didn't look back. Let him sit in that crumbling cafe with his lies and his recycled scarf. Let him pretend I was a mission. Because I wasn't. I had been the storm they unleashed, and then feared. And now? Now I wasn't reporting to anyone. The message came without subject or signature. Come now. That was all. I climbed to the top floor, shoes echoing off the glass and stone walls like a countdown. The hall leading to his office felt longer than usual. Or maybe it was the light. Dim, stretched. The storm from earlier had passed, but the air still hummed like it hadn't left. When I entered, the lights were off. Only the window glowed, catching the pale spill of the city through half-closed blinds. The rest of the room, shadows and silhouettes. The line of the desk, the edge of the bookshelves, and him. Lior stood with his back to me, hands clasped behind him. Silent. Behind me, something shifted. Footsteps that didn't belong to me. I turned quickly. No one. Just the door clicking shut. Of course. You sent for me, I said, voice low. He didn't turn. Yes. Why now? Because it's time, he said. He faced me. Calm. Still. As if nothing had happened. As if I hadn't just been burned by the very people who sent me to infiltrate him. I met with Leo, I said. I know. Of course he did. I was terminated, I added bitterly. Not quite. He moved toward the desk, placing a thin folder on its surface. They didn't terminate you. They handed you over. My pulse spiked. What is that? Everything you sent them. I stepped forward and opened the folder. Page after page, documents, data dumps, internal reports, all watermarked, slightly altered, subtly wrong. Wait. I breathed. These aren't. No. They aren't what you think they were. They were what I wanted them to be. I looked up. You fed me fake intel. I curated your breadcrumbs, he said. Redirected them, rewrote them. Built a path that led nowhere useful. You were watching me the whole time, I said. His voice dropped. I was watching you before you arrived. I snapped the folder shut. So that's it? This was all just a game to you? You think you've been playing? He asked quietly. You think you held any cards? No, he said. You wagered everything. That's not the same. Anger rushed up my throat like bile. You manipulated me. You approached me. You infiltrated my company. You seduced me with your lies, Tia. He stepped closer. Don't be surprised that I lied better. Silence crackled between us. The air in the room had grown thicker, charged. I turned to leave. You can't go back, he said, stopping me. They've already made sure of that. Then I'll find another way. There is no other way. I turned back slowly. He was closer than he'd been a second ago. There's my way, he said. And you're standing in it. I laughed. Once. Sharp. And what exactly are you offering? A cage with better furniture? I'm offering survival, he said simply. And purpose. You can run. You can vanish. You can burn out in some other corner of the world, bitter and clever and alone. He stepped into the light. His eyes were almost golden in the dim glow. Or, he continued, you can stay, and see how deep this game truly goes. My breath caught. What do you want from me? I want you, he said. Not the spy, not the mask. You. I stared at him. And if I say no? He tilted his head slightly. Then I'll let you go, he said. But you'll never stop wondering what you could have become. Silence. And then, "You think you own me." "No," he said. "I think you haven't even begun to understand what you are." He leaned forward. "You're mine, Tia. Not by contract, not by threat, but by fire. You'll stay until you become something more. Or until you burn." I stayed, not because he cornered me, not because I had nowhere else to go. I stayed because I wanted to know how deep the fire went. They moved me to a glass-walled room just down the hall from Lior's office. A clean space, no distractions, just a long obsidian table and a single project folder. Lucent. No team. No brief. Just my name and his signature. The first day, he didn't say a word. The second day, he came in with 2 cups of coffee, set one beside me and said, "This time, we build it together." The third day, I asked the question that had been clawing at the back of my throat since everything changed. "What are you?" He didn't look up from the tablet. "You know." "Say it." He did. "I'm a demon, Tia." I exhaled slowly. "What kind?" He smiled. "The polite kind." I waited. His tone darkened, but it wasn't threatening. It was old. "I don't destroy. I don't possess. I offer. I show people the choices they've buried, the desires they've denied, the things they secretly want but are too afraid to admit." I stared at him. "You tempt them. I reveal them," he corrected. "And what they choose is always their own." I leaned back in the chair. "And what did you see in me?" His eyes flicked up, held mine. "You wanted truth," he said, "even when it burned. Especially when it burned." I didn't reply, because he wasn't wrong. The Lucent campaign wasn't about a product. It was about people. A new kind of experience, built on asking clients not what they needed, but what they truly wanted. No surveys, no statistics. Just blunt honesty, captured, studied, mirrored back at them like a spell. It felt dangerous, real. And every time I pitched a direction, Lior pushed it further. "Don't sell them certainty," he'd say. "Sell them the thrill of wanting more." We worked in silence most days. But the silence was charged, like waiting between thunderclaps. And sometimes he'd speak when I least expected it. Like today. "Do you know what I admire most about humans?" he said, watching the latest prototype shimmer on the screen. I gave him a sidelong glance. "We invented air fryers?" He smirked. "You fall. Repeatedly, violently, and still get up. Not everyone gets up." "No," he said. "But the ones who do, they fascinate me." There was a long pause. Then he said it, softly, but with weight. "The strongest people aren't the ones who resist temptation. They're the ones who go through it, burn, and come out still themselves." I looked at him. "And if they don't? They become something else," he said. "Sometimes worse. Sometimes." He leaned forward, voice low, unimaginably better. One evening, I caught him watching me work. Just watching. No amusement, no calculation. Just that strange, still awareness that he wore like a second skin. "What?" I asked, not looking up. "You haven't run." "No," I said. "I haven't. Even after knowing what I am." "Especially after," I murmured. He came to stand beside me, looking at the campaign structure. "You're different now," he said. "I'm still me." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe this is who you were always meant to be." That thought stayed with me long after he left, because I wasn't sure which possibility scared me more. By the end of the week, Lucent was ready. No lies. No fluff. Just clarity. Sharp, seductive, and impossible to ignore. It was the most honest work I'd ever done, and it had my name on it, next to his. Together. The sky was bleeding. Sunset poured over the skyline in molten streaks of red and gold, fire licking the edges of the glass tower where the launch was held. We were 50 floors above the city, surrounded by open air and too much expectation. The Lucent campaign was about to go public. Everyone was here. Investors, competitors, clients, my former employers, standing just far enough back to pretend they weren't watching me. But they were. Lior hadn't said a word all day. He stood at the edge of the room like a shadow that had made peace with the light, dressed in charcoal black, silent and still, watching. And I was the one walking to the podium. Me, the woman they had tried to erase, the spy-turned-strategist. the weapon they thought they could discard. My heels echoed across the marble as I stepped into the center of the atrium. No microphone, just silence. And then I spoke. This campaign was not designed to manipulate. It was designed to reflect. A pause. We didn't ask people what they wanted to buy. We asked them what they were afraid to want. I looked around the room. So many eyes. But mine went to them, Leo and the others, pretending to sip champagne like they still held the strings. I smiled, sharp. I was trained in the art of control, I continued. Of subtle influence. I know how easy it is to build systems that prey on silence. Another pause. But this campaign? This one breaks that silence. A beat. And I am not the woman I was when I walked into your world. The screen behind me lit up. Lucent's key concept, a mirror, not a mask. The room was dead still. And then, applause. It started small, then grew. Not a thunderstorm, not an ovation, but real, earned. The reception blurred around me. Hands shook mine. Words like brilliant and unprecedented bounced off my ears. But I didn't care about any of them. Because I could feel him watching. So when the crowd began to thin, and the elevator chimed, I turned and slipped out. I knew where he'd be. The rooftop was colder than I expected. Wind brushed my bare arms as I stepped onto the open deck. The city stretched below us like a shattered constellation. The sky above had gone from fire to deep violet, stars blinking through the dusk like they were just waking up. He was standing at the edge, hands in his pockets, silent. I walked up beside him. I didn't burn, I said. He glanced at me. No. I thought I would. So did I. Another pause. He looked back at the skyline. You could have destroyed me, I said softly. I was going to, he admitted. I looked at him. But then you spoke, he said. And I wanted to listen. My throat tightened. I wasn't meant to stay, I said. No, he agreed. But you did. I turned fully to face him. And now what? He stepped toward me. Slowly, intentionally. Now, he said, voice low. You're not a mistake. You're not a puppet. You're not mine by trap or chance. He reached out. Fingers brushed my jaw. You're my choice. The kiss wasn't careful. It wasn't cautious. It was real. It was fire. And this time, I didn't burn. I bloomed. The new office didn't look like Eidolon. Not anymore. Gone were the black glass walls, the sharp edges, the elegant cold. Now there was warmth in the light. Plants in corners. A record player humming something old and low. The name on the door had changed too. Elbrecht and Morgan, no title. No tagline. Just a name that meant, we chose this together. I stood in the center of the main room, watching the last of the boxes get wheeled out. On the far wall hung the only art we'd agreed on. A framed photograph of a burning rose. Lior said it was a cliché. I said, we earned the right to one. Behind me, footsteps. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. He walked up beside me, suit jacket undone, sleeves rolled to the forearms. The kind of ease that looked impossible on him months ago. The kind of ease we had bled for. How's it feel? He asked. Strange, I said honestly. He looked around. We built this. We survived it first. He let out a soft laugh. I turned to face him. There were 2 chairs behind the desk now. Identical. Leather. Comfortable. Equal. He noticed where I was looking. I thought we'd fight over who gets the right side. I shrugged. You can have it. I already claimed the window. He nodded. Power move. I walked to the desk, ran my hand over the smooth wood. No dust. No folders with hidden traps. You still read me too easily, I said. I never stopped, he replied. I sat. He sat beside me. For a while we didn't speak, just looked out at the skyline. The office was high enough that the chaos of the world felt like a hum beneath our feet, distant but present. Finally, I asked the question. Do you still want my soul? He didn't flinch, didn't laugh. He just looked at me, all mask gone, and said, no. I want you to take mine. I blinked. Once? You don't mean that? I do. I turned toward him. You're a demon. Yes. I thought demons collect things. I've spent centuries collecting, he said. And not one soul I ever claimed made me feel what you did when you stood in front of that crowd and said their silence wouldn't hold you anymore. His voice dropped. You didn't just survive temptation. You made it yours. My throat went tight. Lior. I'm not asking for forever, he said. I don't believe in it. Good, I said, voice shaky. Because I don't promise things I can't mean. We sat in silence. Then I reached over, took his hand. He didn't move. But his fingers curled around mine, slow and warm. And that was it. Not a declaration, not a happily ever after, but a choice. Not just tempted. Chosen. By both of us.